Welcome back, everybody. This is Brian, as always, with Bats and Stats presented by ScoutTheStatline.com. I am always with my partner, Ross R. Jensen, and we have a fantastic guest tonight, guys. Fantastic guest, Mr. Drew Wheeler. Drew, would you like to say hi to everybody?
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be in your earbuds, over your car speakers, present wherever you may be at the moment. It's truly a blessing to be speaking to you all again after so long, and to be on such a wonderful show for such a wonderful website that has been a bookmark of mine since its inception. So thank you for having me, and I'm really glad to be here.
That's great. Hey, Drew, it's been a pleasure meeting you for we sat here for 10 minutes and just kind of talked to each other. It's great to have you on here. This is going to be a wonderful podcast, everybody. Drew is a stand-up individual from what I can tell so far, and I'd just like a little bit more insight into Drew Wheeler. He's a current writer for Prospect Live, and I just want to know a little bit more about you, Drew. You did mention that you are in Tennessee, and I want to know a little bit more about whereabouts in Tennessee you're talking about.
Okay. Well, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm from West Tennessee. I'm from McNairy County, where I serve as the editor of our local newspaper, the McNairy County News. It's not a very creative name. I like to think it's a good newspaper, though. Either way, if you haven't ever heard of us, you might have heard of one of our former sheriffs, and that's Sheriff Buford Pusser, who is the who the movies Walking Tall from the 1970s were based on. Also, the I guess you'd call it the inspiration for the 2004 movie Walking Tall, starring none other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who I'm a big fan of and who I met when he was in the county as a wee boy. Either way, just tickled to be a part of that history. McNairy County is a really slow going place, which is nice for me. Um, I do write for Prospects Live, as you said. I podcasted for them formerly, and it's something that I look to do in the future. And I kind of alluded to that, or you guys alluded to my work there. Still writing, still podcasting, just not as much. I have been dealing with kind of a great season of change and of uh, mental health issues, if I can. Let's just call it what it is. It's been a lot of
Yeah.
mental health issues that I've been struggling with, but thank God I'm coming through that, and that's kind of the shortest version of it is thank God. So so glad to be here with you guys, and I'll answer anything you got. I'd love to talk about any and everything with you boys.
I love it. I love it. That's a great story about the same county being in there. And I'll say the same thing. I'm in Montana, so every county's small in Montana, and that's the way I like to live my life as well. Slow paced, and unfortunately, my work life isn't that way. So the mental health stuff I get, and I hope you're taking care of yourself.
Thank you. It's a day by day thing, but
Yes.
days like today, I get to think about, overcoming a hill. It's almost like a mental thing where I look at a podcast as something that I used to know. I can come into a room in a Zoom call or on StreamYard and feel like $1 million, feel like nothing can go wrong, and then to feeling like an anxious mess and feeling depressed and everything sounds terrible, and knowing like, okay, if I have to podcast tonight, I'm going to be the biggest drag. I'm going to be a bummer to you guys in the room, or to Eddie, or to Dylan, or to Matt, or Jordan, or whoever I'm podcasting with. And to go from that to having so many good days in a row that you get picked up, to having such a good day today that you think, you know what, let's jump in with Brian and with Ross and let's talk some prospects. It's not me. It's a testament to the Lord and to the work that He does. And guys, I'm just so tickled to be in such a friendly, like I said off the air, it's such a friendly space to come back to podcasting. It's really a wonderful thing.
That's good. It's good.
We're
I love
really
it. I love
we're
it.
really excited to have you, Drew, because I mean, me and you, we've bantered a little bit back and forth over the years, and I've just always really enjoyed it. Drew was probably the first person that I know of that was kind of in the space, an industry person, for whatever that term really refers to, who had said that had somehow kind of inspired his work, which shocked me because I was like, I didn't know I was actually inspiring anyone to do anything. So I love that. And that article still, Christian Encarnacion Strand, you nailed that guy so early. It was awesome. It's a great article.
Thank you, man. You know, you're not giving yourself enough credit, because anything that I do, I always kind of call out the guys that inspired me most. And you are one of the foremost names that has to be mentioned with any and everything I do with fantasy, because your work with Statline scouting inspired me to do what I had already been doing for myself, but at a broader level and reaching further and presenting what I'd gathered as these, I think one of your articles that I loved the most was called Finding the Next Big Thing, One Man's Tenets for Fantasy Success. Ross, I'd be ashamed to tell you how many times I've read that article this calendar year. It's so much. I've read that article over and over, but the tenets that I had developed, I realized were something that successful writers and players were doing. And so why not share that with people? And, especially now that I'm trying to look at my life as, how can I give back? How can I help others? Let's help others by doing this thing that we share in common, we love. And if I can help people do this, then man, what a gift.
It's interesting, because that's exactly why I got into doing the fantasy baseball stuff for the Dynasty Guru way back in the day, is just because it's something I enjoy doing. And you know what? I guess I can be the emblem for this. Like, I'm just a guy, I'm just some regular guy. And somebody was like, out in the ether, was like, hey, we're looking for people that want to write for us. And I was like, you know what? I like doing it. Why don't I just see if I can help other people doing it? And that's it. I mean, and now we've got Scout the Statline just a few years later, and it's this thing that's, I still don't know exactly what it is, but it's growing like wildfire, and I think it's going to be really big. And that just came from nothing, just this idea, just this little idea.
You should be so proud of yourself, though, because taking, like you said, you took that opportunity, some random call for talent, and the Dynasty Guru, they plucked a literal gem out of, like you said, out of the ether. They found a gem, and now you've made something that helps people every single day. I mean, we could go on and on about that, but I mean, that's really similar to kind of my story, with how, Michael Simeone, the SP streamer, my guy, Mike, and before we go any further, major shout out to Michael Simeone. Through everything I've gone through, he was one of the guys that texted me like at least once a month asking how I was doing. A genuine human being. Please go follow Michael Simeone at SP streamer. But anyway, for his site of the same name, got to start there. And he was, I remember asking him, Michael, what do you want me to write? And he said, whatever you want, because that's going to be the best version of you that you could possibly be. And man, Ross, it's so crazy to hear kind of that your story and mine have so many parallels, because I do look up to you and your work so much. So it's just serendipitous, as they say.
Just so strange to hear that, but I appreciate it. I want to plug this. Your Twitter handle is @DrewIsOK.
It's true.
Which is a terrible Twitter handle, because it should be @DrewIsAwesome. That's what I think.
My favorite joke about that is that I never want to leave people with too high of expectations. But if I tell you that I'm okay, then chances are I could probably hit that. Say Drew is awesome, and I come out with some crappy tweet about I don't know, if you catch a really bad 3 a.m. Say a Suzuki tweet and you're like, this guy is okay. He's not awesome, but he's okay. Could be worse.
Yeah. Yep. I like it. So
I love it, guys.
I do want to talk to you a little bit about SP Streamer, if you don't mind. But before we do, let's do our beers so that we don't get too deep into this before.
Well, let's rename it just a little bit, because last week we had a drink of the pod, and we're going to do a drink of pod with myself tonight. I don't know what Drew's got. Ross told me that he crawfished me because we were going to both drink wine tonight, but no. So Ross, while I uncork this bad boy, will you go ahead and go first? Drew, you can go second, and I will go last.
Okay, so I was at the store and I was looking through the wine and I was like, that doesn't really seem like what I want tonight. So I went with this instead. This is Lindemann's Framboise. It's a raspberry lambic beer, which is probably going to be a little sweeter than I'd prefer, but I'm going to go for it anyway. So listen to this because I want to read this description here. Lindemann's Framboise lambic, made from local barley, unmalted wheat, raspberry juice, aged hops, and wild airborne yeast. True lambics are rare. They are all brewed and fermented at one of fewer than a dozen breweries, all located in Belgium's Seine River Valley near Brussels, a region only about 15 by 75 miles in size. 15 by 75 miles. So it's a small region, apparently. All right.
That's going to be an interesting thing to taste. I know you said it sounded too sweet for you, but it sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah. Oh man, this guy's corked even. Good thing I got a corkscrew down here. Sure, I got a good angle here. Ooh, it's
red.
Reddish. Kind of like a wine, Brian.
Yeah, I suppose I'll give it to you. You didn't crawfish me.
All right.
Fruity.
Very fruity.
Yep.
Very fruity. Sweet. It's probably going to be difficult for me to drink this whole bottle because of that. It might get at me a little bit, but it's pretty good. I mean, it's like a juice. Tastes like a juice. It's like I'm drinking a juice box. So I'm all right with it. I like juice boxes.
True.
Funny that you say that because I don't know. Well, I haven't said it, but I've kind of stopped drinking. Part of getting my life kind of to where I want it to be. I've stopped drinking altogether. And it's funny you called it a juice box because tonight's selection for Drew is a Capri Sun lemonade.
Nice.
Pretty hyped. I'm gonna give it a shot and tell you guys what we think.
Where's it from, Drew?
Okay, let's have a look. This is it is from.
I'm sure it's California.
I'm almost positive. All I know is that this is lemonade flavored juice drink blend from concentrate with other natural flavors, not labeled for individual sale because I got that 8-pack,
Yeah.
And there's subtle notes of lemon, a lot of sugar. I'd say that I'm probably on par sweetness level with Ross on this one. So, Brian, what are you drinking? Because when I saw your bottle, I kept thinking this looks like a wine that a vampire would drink. Like, did you see that? It's very gothic.
Very, very, very gothic. So once again, Apothic Dark. Apothic Dark. And it's inspired by Apotheca, a mysterious place where some of the earliest wines was blended and stored. Apothic Wines offers a truly unique wine experience. The dark aspect of it, there's a freedom in darkness. It draws our curiosities and piques the senses. Apothic Dark blends bold layers of dark blueberry and blackberry with opulent notes of coffee and dark chocolate with a rich, smooth finish. Now, I want to tell you guys one thing that I've experienced in my life. I've had bottles of wine that were thousands of dollars. They're not as good as a $11 bottle of wine.
Hey, man.
Oh, and from Father's Day, my kids got me this. There's another one too that I'll showcase next week. But this is to Dad from the Reasons Why You Drink.
Yeah, I just can't I can't believe how serendipitous that was that I described my drink as a juice box and you had a Capri Sun. That's pretty incredible.
That's awesome. That's what the pod's all about.
Crazy the way things work, you know what I'm saying?
That's terrific.
Brian?
Oh, it is dry. It is massively dry. But that's the way I love my wines. I really, really like dry wines. You pair this with a steak and you are in heaven, baby.
So there are a couple people that I work with that are big into wine and expensive wines. And we've had this conversation a lot about the diminishing returns by dollar spend. You know, it's like the more you spend, it's like you're getting maybe quality that's that much better once you start getting into those real high price ranges. But you know, if you've got the money, then it doesn't matter. You are willing to pay the price for it. I do not have it, so I'm not willing to pay the price for it.
A fun little tidbit. I've always been told that you need to smell the cork to really get the natural flavors of a wine. This is one of the best smelling corks you'll ever have. It's unbelievable, and you can almost taste it as soon as you smell it. But if you're not a dry wine drinker, if you don't like the dark reds, dries, this is not for you. If you like sweet wine, just don't even think about trying it. I don't know where it's from. I should have looked at that.
Pennsylvania, of course.
It's a California wine. But you can probably...
Is it a Merlot, a Cab, does it say? Or is it just...
I think it just says blend. It says bold red blend.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's all it says. I would guess you go down to your local gas station, it's sitting right there on the shelf. And it's one of my favorite wines.
Nice. All right.
Well, but with that, let's get back to some baseball. Instead, we're talking about, well, everybody wants to hear about what we're drinking, so it's okay.
So back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Drew, can you tell us a little bit about SP Streamer? Because it had kind of this interesting disappearance. In fact, I was looking for your article before the podcast today, and it's no longer out there, obviously. I didn't realize that the site was completely taken down, but turns out that that's the case. So can you just tell me a little bit about that? Because I like the work that you were doing there, and it's sad to see it gone.
Sure, I'm happy to talk about it. Michael Simeone, the SP streamer, started his site as a place to host his daily streamer picks and his rankings for the week, his work essentially, and hired some folks to kind of fill out the site, and it became kind of a little engine that could. I like to think that we had a severely under the radar site filled with talented, young, hungry people in the industry, and Michael himself being one of them, who had made his mark and had found a foothold and a niche, and that he was fulfilling and giving to people. What was the time frame? I believe it would have been summer of 22. Maybe like early summer 22. Michael kind of messaged all of the staff individually and let us know, he had already kind of slowed down, but was taking a step back for health reasons, personal reasons that, I don't think he'd be upset with me saying that it was, he'd had some health problems, but moreover, he started a business. He had been successful professionally with other companies and found that he could achieve kind of the same goals, but do it his own way and have his own company. And so he pursued that. And along with that came less of time for his site. And, of course, now Michael is doing Gaining the Edge Fantasy with, Mike Kurland and Jorge Montañez and there's somebody else with them, and I can't remember, but I'm sorry, whoever I'm forgetting, I'm so sorry. But the site, though, I kind of thought to myself, I was like, I've been doing this for like 9 months now. I've built kind of a monthly segment with Command and Control, which essentially was Statline scouting that would hopefully unearth prospects that you could get because they weren't being valued properly at that point. Right. And Michael gave me the opportunity to do things like that were kind of off the dome and that I thought could broaden our horizon. You look at sites like Fangraphs that have everything. The Athletic has everything. even stuff like Prospects Live. There's things on all these different subsects of the game and of fantasy baseball. But Michael's site didn't have Dynasty, and when I was hired, he said, you have such a history with Dynasty, you have such a passion for prospects, and there's another guy that I'd like to pair you with and see kind of what you guys can make happen. And it was Peyton Skinner, and Peyton and I hit it off really well. Had kind of a team building that we really thought we could do Dynasty stuff with, but the site closed. And then maybe a month or two after Michael announced the site was closing, the entire site was taken down, which is very unfortunate because all of my back catalog of work is now gone. I mean, I have hard copies on a portable drive, but I mean, they're nowhere. I don't have anywhere to host those. And I mean, I suppose I could host them on the Prospects Live Patreon, where I could have like a WordPress or some, post them on like Google Docs for free for everybody and have like something into, I don't know. There's probably options that I've never really entertained because I've never really thought about it. I honestly never considered anyone would want to go back and read it until you just said that, Ross. But doing command and control allowed me the opportunity to find prospects the way that I always did it for myself. I'd look at the stats and see, okay, who do I know? Who do I know is supposed to be good? And I can evaluate them with a more strict eye, but then looking for the things that those guys display. Who do I not know? Who is under the radar? Who's a guy that may have been performing above what I expected or below what I expected? And, that's just something really cool. And I appreciate that you went back to that. That kind of blows my mind, honestly.
Well, I mean, like I said, it was the first person that ever actually expressed this interest in something that I did. And I was just shocked. It set me back. I was like, oh, people actually like what I do. Just thought I was blasting stuff out into the ether, So from there, you ended up with Prospects Live. Can you just walk us through that just a little bit and tell us about what you're doing, what you have been doing with them?
Sure. Thank you. I'm so blessed to have met so many cool people. And, Michael announced the site was closing, and Michael had said to me, Drew, any of our writers, I want to help you go wherever you can go to continue this in this space, continue writing, continue your content creation. And I'm willing to do whatever. And we appreciated that so much. Peyton and I should say, appreciated that so much. And there were negotiations for me to go elsewhere as part of a package deal with Peyton, and that didn't really pan out necessarily. Fortunately, I play in the Highlander Dynasty Invitational, and I got to meet several of the guys from Prospects Live, whose site has been, I've said it a million times, but an invaluable resource to me in my time playing fantasy baseball. And getting to meet guys like Smada and Eddie, and even ambassadors of the site that have since gone, like Jeff Ponce. Getting to meet these guys after reading their work and cherishing their work was such a good thing for me. And when it was announced that the site was closing, it might have been 2 days that Smada reached out to me personally and offered me a job to pay me to create content for his site that was, something I had always used and cherished. And, it was such a treat and such an honor to be even considered, let alone have somebody you look up to message you and say, say the level of things that Smada said to me that were very kind. Anyway, so for them, I obviously am responsible for doing all the things that all of our Dynasty team does, which is produce our top 500 prospects, our top 1,000 Dynasty list. I talk to all of our people on Discord as much as I possibly can. And then beyond that, I'm responsible for coming up with content and hosting podcasts kind of at my own, as I can, has been kind of the way that it's gone lately. And that's a testament to Eddie Almaguer. And I have to give him a ton of credit for being so good to me, and to Matt Thompson and Smada, all of them being so good to me while I've struggled. And that's not to say anything about, Jordan Rosenblum, who is
we know
who
him.
is amazing. You guys are big fans of Jordan, just like I am. I mean, and Jordan's amazing and has been so good to me. And I mean, even Greg Hoopkamp, who's just started with us, but has been such a gem and such a good friend.
He's a TDG
all
guy too.
Exactly. There's a lot of TDG crossover with Prospects Live, and so it's just great, and it's a wonderful site. But I'm doing other things. I'm kind of known. I would guess I'm known for having kind of a knowledge of import players. So MPB, KBO. I really like those players. Those leagues, I think, are such underappreciated and undervalued sources of talent because people like to do these antiquated, well, this is double A. This is just double A. No, this is a professional league who just happens to have less of a collection of the best baseball players in the world. These are professionals. And beyond that, another thing is that I really enjoyed doing our first year player draft content. And I guess this is an announcement, but I've actually started my first year player draft rankings as of this week. And nice. They're going great. I'm so excited for the draft. I don't know if you guys are, but
oh yeah, thrilled. I think this is one of the best drafts that there's been in recent memory. So I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Who do you guys like the best at the top?
I'm gonna go with the bat. I'm going with Cruz.
Cruz. Yeah.
That's
I was gonna go with Cruz as well. Skeens is right there.
Oh man, I don't know, I don't know how you guys are going to feel on this specifically, but I've never disagreed with a single sentiment more than there is no such thing as a pitching prospect. If that's the case, then why are so many of them on lists, and why are so many of them talked about, and why are so many of them successful year to year? There's pitching prospects. I'm sorry that people are bad at identifying them, or that people judge them unfairly on terrible scales. But no, that's not true. You guys do fine. I'm just saying that from a public perspective, if someone expects Gavin Stone to come in and off the jump be Justin Verlander, you've already set him up for failure. Right. You have to. And anyway, I'm getting way off on tangent.
No, you're good. Keep going, man. Keep going. I love it.
I agree with that sentiment 100%. By the way,
but so touching on anyway. Anyway, long story short, Skeens is fabulous. I don't know necessarily what he's going to be, but I know watching him at SEC play, watching him even in the World Series itself. If you are to consider the SEC as being the elite of college baseball, which I do, and then consider the World Series as being almost like, you could call it the best of Double A. Paul Skeens is shown to be nothing short of absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. And if Double A is the closest comparison you can get to the SEC, then we've seen Paul Skeens strike out over 200 batters in a Double A setting. How is this man not a prospect you want to roster? And I feel sometimes like people are just holding on to a tenant because of a guy that hurt you 10 years ago. Let it go. Paul Skeens may not be the number one prospect in this draft because Dylan Cruz is a freak of nature and looks like the second coming of Brian Reynolds. But that doesn't mean that Paul Skeens isn't worth your time. And I could go on for days about that. But yes, you guys called out two of the most outstanding talents in this draft. And man, we could talk about more, but we've actually got you guys set up a really nice and loose format, I should say, with some cool stuff to talk about. And I don't want to bog us down.
I love this. I want to finish I want to finish it. I want to see it through. Skeens, you're right. I got a question for you. They've been calling him the best pitching prospect to come out of college since Strasburg. Who do you take, Strasburg or Skeens?
I still think I take Strasburg, honestly, because Straw is just, honestly, I don't know. I mean, really, I think that's accurate. I think Skeens is the closest thing I've seen in a college pitcher to just looking like every pitching prospect out of college is clay. Think about it like that. They're all clay, and then they just need the molding. If the team is a good molder, the sculptor's hands are apt and know what they're doing, then you're going to produce quality players eventually. And I think Skeens, his hunk of clay looks the most like the finished product I've seen since probably Straws. I mean, Cole or Bauer, maybe. I mean, you look at those guys coming out of school. I mean, actually, I think I'd take Skeens over Bauer or Cole at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I guess it's Strauss is the only one that's kind of the animal. And if you made me pick one, I guess I'd take Skeens just because, considering the development that he's had on his side. And man, I listened to just a crackerjack interview with him. I want to say it was Prospects Live, not intentionally plugging us, but man, he talked about the difference even between like Air Force and LSU, how he can now completely focus on baseball. He can look at these metrics and his spin data and his locations and look at his sequencing in ways that LSU has that even Air Force couldn't provide. And thinking about like, okay, well, yeah, what if Strauss had that? Cool fantasy world, I don't know what the answer to that is because I don't know. But Skeens does have it, and Skeens is going to have advanced data and advanced help and advanced metrics that assist him in being everything that Strauss was, and hopefully we'll have a better understanding of arm injuries and the maintenance to these guys, so that Skeens could be everything Strasburg wasn't. I'd take Skeens personally.
I would too. I love it. That's good. That's great stuff.
Some hot takes.
Yes.
Strasburg was the highest touted pitcher I can remember in my fantasy baseball playing career. Yeah. Just thinking broad range, Strasburg was the biggest thing as a pitcher. And you guys are putting Skeens above him. I like it. I like it a lot. But I do want to touch on a couple things that you mentioned. KBO and international play. You kind of hinted at maybe they could be double A. Are they quad A? What do you think?
I think a much more in terms of Nippon Pro Baseball from Japan, I would say they're probably somewhere between. And I said this in an article that I wrote for SP Streamer about Seiya Suzuki that I still think was the finest piece I've ever written for any baseball thing ever. But this is a very dangerous and antiquated game that we're playing. But if you forced me to play, I would put NPB somewhere between AAA and Major League Baseball. So you could call it Quad A. You could consider, let's imagine a league filled with the Colorado Rockies and Oakland Athletics. Maybe that is a fair comparison. I mean, and now granted, players in the MPB, like you look at guys like Shohei Ohtani, guys like Seiya Suzuki, guys like Daisuke Matsuzaka, Masahiro Tanaka, Ichiro. You look at these, Hideo Nomo. Like you can look at these guys, Kosuke Fukudomi. You can look at these guys who were obviously head and shoulders above those guys, and then you think, like let's take Tanaka or Fukudomi because those are great examples. Or Hisashi Iwakuma is a perfect example. Let's do Iwakuma instead. Iwakuma in Japan was elite, the elite of the elite. You call him McClanahan, Burns, whatever you want to call him. He's that. And when you bring him to Major League Baseball, he wasn't quite that. But if he was a B- or a B level player instead of an A+, that's still a fantasy viable player, and he's still one of the best in the world. I think that there's such a misnomer with kind of what to do with those players, and I feel like every year I tell people, I rang the bell so hard for Yoshida this past off season, and people were like, no, the power's not going to play. No, the average, he's never faced major league pitching. He's not a professional hitter. I can't tell you how many times I heard that, and I just more for me.
Yep.
It's fine. Yep. More for me. And boy, I'm glad because I mean everything you wanted, he has delivered. And I mean, granted, Seiya Suzuki, everyone should know at this point. That's my favorite player in pro baseball. But I mean, he's kind of had a rough go and still has been a fine outfielder. I mean, a fine fantasy guy. If he's your OF3, then you're doing great.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I hope that answered your question.
The reason I bring this up is I've been a big proponent for the KBO and those other leagues other than MLB being equal to Double A. And I think my mind has been changed within the past probably 9 months, especially with the World Baseball Classic. You know, obviously we saw what happened there. But I wanted to hear it on a podcast. And I wanted to admit my idiocracy for it too, that I didn't think it was as good. I thought they were double A. That was my standard. And I love double A stats.
Oh, yeah.
Those are my tipping points. When I see double A stats, I will take those for gold. Those can translate. KBO, I thought was equal to that. And I said this in the Discord for Dynasty Gurus. I just did not think it was major league level. And for you to come out and say that it is, I love it. I love it. I absolutely adore it.
And the talent is all over the map. You have some of the best players in the world, and then you've got guys that would probably be double A in the States. You know, it's all over the place. We do have some of the most interesting, some of the best talent coming from overseas over the next few years. I'm super stoked about Jung-Hoo Lee. You've got next year Yamamoto coming over. Really excited for him. I think he's going to be a really good pitcher. And then in 2 years, of course, we got Murakami and Sasaki.
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
It's going to be great, huh?
Huge. Yeah. I'm really excited.
And I mean, we have every reason to be excited. And Brian, I have to say, man, you cannot beat yourself up because you know, we have the luxury and the privilege of living in America where, you know, Major League Baseball, the preeminent league in the world, is played. And so seeing, you know, this collection of the world's greatest talent wanting to play in the world's greatest league, it's okay because, I mean, frankly, it is a lesser scale because less percent of the best players in the world play in those professional leagues. You shouldn't feel bad and you shouldn't beat yourself up because it's not idiocracy on your part. It may just be something you didn't know yet. And I'm so happy that you're expanding your passion for the game internationally. And man, consider how many people in just this past February had the same kind of light bulb moment where, you know, ding, and they realize, wow, there's so many wonderful players internationally, and there's so many wonderful players in the minor leagues that are from, you know, Australia or so many, you know, Italy. It's just, it's tremendous to know that we can broaden the game and to see a more, to see the world's best league truly take steps to become even more of the world's best league. It's a treat.
Yeah. Oh, I do want to touch on one more thing, just because you said it. So you compared the SEC to Double A, and I love that take. I absolutely do. How does it translate? Like, have you looked into it massively, or is it just some tidbits? Do you really think that the SEC is Double A?
I looked into it enough to have a conversational knowledge of it. It was never anything that I could have written and put my name beside and said, "Hey, go read this on," you know, "Hey, read this on Twitter." But I think that and surely somebody has written something. Somebody in the comments or on Twitter.
I don't think
so. Somebody educate us.
I've never seen anybody compare it and like have statistical breakdowns and side by side. But I thought it was very interesting that you said it because I think I agree.
You know, there's certainly something to be said about it because if you consider, you know, where are SEC schools fed from? They're fed from the elite of high school. So if that's the level bringing up, you know, I think that there's certain, you know, they're getting the best of the best. And so it kind of qualifies as, you know, the best of, you know, the complex league, the best of, you know, the Dominican league, the best of, you know, single A. And those things contribute. I mean, maybe high A is a more safe comp, but I think that it's certainly fair to say that the College World Series is the elite of college baseball. They're all either the same age or older slightly, maybe younger slightly than the players in Double A. I don't know. I think that for the age, for the development, for the fact that these guys have been, you know, doing baseball, so to say, at half, and that's a generous thing to say. A college student who is playing baseball in the SEC is getting a world-class education. And that's not just from me being from the South. I mean, those are all very good schools, academically speaking. I think that they're having to focus on so many things, but also succeeding at baseball at such a high level that when you take someone used to that level of competition against the elite of college baseball and you put them and you say, you know, hey, we're paying you money, you're now going to focus solely on baseball. I think it's no surprise that you see quality major leaguers turned over on a regular basis from the SEC. And so I think that, like you said a minute ago, and I feel the same way, Brian, that AA stats they hold such a weight, because man, if you can succeed against AA where pitchers are actually pitching and not just hucking a ball very fast, boy, you may actually be something. Yeah. And so, you know, I think that it's almost just like an additional leg up. So if you listening at home, if you think, you know, Drew is, man, he's the lemonade is hitting extra hard for him tonight, but you know, I don't know about AA, maybe high A. And I would still say AA, but I would gracefully accept you saying that the lemonade's hitting and that it should be more high A. I think it's AA.
I would love to see a comparison on how many SEC school players got signed out of high school, got drafted, and chose to go to college. 3 years later, we have AA stats, right? So
I got to throw this out there. On the Scout the Statline website roadmap,
I didn't plug this for no reason.
So at some point, I don't know when we're going to be able to get around to it, because we got so much that we're trying to do right now. But eventually we will have this, and we'll have the answer to that. We'll know what it is comparable to, because we're going to have all the translations. And the challenge there is you have to do that by each conference. I mean, there's a lot of conferences in baseball we're talking about having translations for, but we'll know what is the equivalent at the minor league level. What does it look like for that guy to become a pro? You know, we're going to know the answers to that stuff. It's just a matter of research, right?
I can't wait.
Yeah,
my mind was there. I was doing a plug for us. I just
That's right.
There it is, fellas. Okay, so finally some players. You know, we've got great content already. We've already talked about some great stuff. I appreciate every second of it. But let's get to a couple players. And before we got onto the podcast tonight, Drew told me that he was a Phillies fan. And he was like, no, like, if you guys don't want to talk Phillies, it ain't no big deal. And I was like, no, we're talking Phillies. So we got two guys. We got two guys that came up on the Scout the Statline leaderboard. The first one that came up was Justin Crawford. And Justin Crawford is a 6'1", 175-pound outfielder with a single A affiliate with Phillies. He's 19 years old. I just, when I seen this, I was like, I need to check this again, because he's got 182 at bats this year. So this is just 2023, 182 at bats this year. And he has hit 346, 395, 456, and has 32 stolen bases. No home runs, but he does have 5 triple baggers and 10 doubles. So those can turn into a little bit of power. We're talking about a 19-year-old in single A. That is a lot of freaking stolen bases, fellas. Drew, tell me if you know anything about Justin Crawford. Do you love him? Do you hate him?
Well, sure. You know, as I alluded to earlier, the FYPD classes and ranking those is something that I hold a lot of passion for. And Justin Crawford is a player that my ranks were actually very similar to our overall ranks at Prospects Live. I did write our blurb for Justin Crawford, which I will just read for you since I have it on hand. Yes. I wrote that Carl's son, Justin Crawford, is a projectable dream and truth. Predictably, He is an elite runner with a long, natural stride. Crawford mimics his father's early extension while swinging, allowing him longer opportunities to make contact in the zone. As he continues to grow, more power could manifest. Athletic and toolsy, he's certainly a project, but still, Justin Crawford could turn into one of the most dynamite final products of this entire class. If he shakes out to be 85% of his father Carl at peak, he would end up a 255 hitter with 10 home runs, about 40 plus, call it 40 to 45 stolen bases, 80-ish runs, and 50-ish RBI per season. That'll do. I had Justin at 17 in my rankings, and looking at them now for the first time in a while, there are obviously guys I think I would take Justin over instead of, in this rank. But then again, there are guys that I think are lower than him that have been a little more impressive. Looking at our special stat at Prospects Live that Mr. Jordan Rosenblum has developed, P Live Plus, Justin Crawford, as of his last update, had a P Live Plus of 105, and that essentially says that he is, you look at that like a WRC plus. So 105 means he's about 5% better than your average minor league player. And I don't think that this has been updated since Crawford has had such a dynamite series of hits and games where he reached the current stat line that you read earlier. Mm-hmm. To answer the question very briefly and very bluntly, yeah, I like Justin Crawford a good bit. I think that you do. I think that he is one of the more exciting batters in a system that I feel like everyone points to and says, they have pitching, but then what? Justin Crawford is a guy that I know I can hang my World Series Phillies hat on with pride and say that maybe this is a guy we have. And if he, like I said, if he's 70% of Carl Crawford, that'll play. That's a center fielder that we could use every single day.
Yep.
Carl Crawford, just a little tidbit, was one of my favorite players when he was in the game. I was a big fan of Carl Crawford. So this is somebody that I had my eye on right away, obviously for the family ties reason, but he plays just like his dad, right? I mean, a little less power than Carl had later in his career, but that might come. Man, the guy can hit and he steals bases, obviously. I mean, he's up to number 38 for our hitter leaderboards, so that's pretty impressive. He's
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know he'd gotten to 38 on your boards. That's so impressive.
Yeah.
Yep. He climbed.
Stolen bases helped a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, but
he climbed, I think, 9 spots today.
That's awesome.
Well, I haven't even looked. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe it was 9 spots today, and that was one of the reasons that I chose him for this podcast.
Can I ask a question out of curiosity? In terms of the current leaderboard, Brian, do you know how many other first-year player draft guys from the 22 class rank ahead of Crawford right now? At least hitters, I guess you could say. Because, I mean, I assume one for sure is Jackson Holliday that ranks above him. But, I mean, I'm curious which other first-year player draft eligible guys would be slotted above Crawford, because 38 is such a – I mean, what an amazing number that is to have, like you said, the steals help, but the guy makes solid contact. And like you said, if he's going to translate to being a player that was, at his peak, a first-round fantasy player, okay, that's a great thing to have.
So I'm quick looking through. I've got one other guy, besides Jackson Holliday so far that I'm seeing, and that's Ryan Clifford.
Check it out.
We got Judd Fabian on there.
See, okay, so like if you have 3 guys that are above Crawford right now, let's call it 5 just for argument's sake. Mm-hmm. And they are guys like, Holliday, Fabian, and Ryan Clifford, who have shown to be, studs thus far. And then Crawford is right under them. Why is no one talking about Justin Crawford?
Nobody is. Yeah, it's weird too, especially with that name. Yeah, you would assume that name would just shoot him up. Nobody's talking about him. And
it's the bias against power, I think. 0 home runs, so it's just kind of he's off the board.
Yeah.
But 32 stolen bases. I don't care if that stat is going to be more diluted moving forward or not. That's a lot of stolen bases. Stolen bases still playing the game, so Yeah.
Theoretically speaking, though, if would you call it half of a minor league season right now? As of right now,
Pretty
half
close.
a season?
Getting there, yeah.
182, yeah.
So then let's say that you double that and he ends up with, what did you say he had, 32 as of today? Yeah. So he ends up with 64, and then you dilute that by 5%. At the major league level, he's stealing 30 bases, and we're supposed to just ignore that? I don't think so.
No
I
way.
don't think so.
And he's going to steal more bases than that. Yeah. He's got his dad's legs.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I don't. If he comes anywhere near that average, I'm all in. 346.
No,
346. And he's only 19 years old. He's probably, can he get a call up to AA this year at 19?
I don't think he'll make it there.
His birthday. Man, I'd be so excited. I don't see it happening, but boy, I'd be so happy to wear a Phillies hat that day. But realistically, though, you said just a second ago, Brian, that if he hits anywhere close to 342 and steals, I mean, let's just call it 30 bags. I mean, what if he hit 250 and stole 30 bases? Like at what like level of fantasy relevance? Where do you draft that guy?
I'm all in.
First 12 rounds for sure.
Yeah, I'm all in.
I just put a claim in for him in my one league that lets me.
Nice.
So he just
let's go.
He just turned 19 as well. His birthday is January 13th of 04. So he just turned 19.
Wow.
He won't be 20 until the start of next year.
Yeah. We
might see a AAA prospect next year.
Could be.
Go get him. There you go.
I tried to throw a little Tennessee into it, so
yeah, I love it.
Sounded like Shepherd, Montana, right there. Go get him.
Jeez. All right, let's go to this other guy. I'm looking forward to this guy too.
Yeah. The next one is hair for days. Hair for days. This guy's got a great set of hair. And it's Emaarion Boyd. And Emaarion Boyd is in the single A affiliate with Philadelphia Phillies. He is 5'11", 177 pounds. He's 19 years old. His birthday is August 22nd, 2003. He was drafted in the 11th round, picked 332. Listen to these stats, guys. Just these stats this year. I'm not going to do last year, but I should. But the stats this year, 174 at bats. He's got 47 hits, averaged 270 on base percentage, 388, slugging 310. We're not talking about the slugging. And on base plus slugging is 698. He has 38 stolen bases. What do you got on Emaarion Boyd, Drew Wheeler?
I don't know. I mean, kind of copy and paste in some regards. You look at a guy with 38 steals in A-ball, and you just dream of what could be. I mean, let's say hypothetically this 19-year-old does manage to, flirt around and end up in the major leagues as a 22, 23-year-old. I mean, we still have one of the most elite run producers in all of baseball batting in Justin Crawford. And that's not to say that guys like Boyd and Crawford don't develop more power of their own, don't turn into maybe a two-hitter instead of a 1 and 9. These are, and again, with all of the progression in terms of like launch angle, in terms of the ways to make power, to manufacture power beyond just muscle. I think that there's so much to be said for, this 19-year-old. I mean, guys, when I was 19, I was a little bit skinnier than I am now. So, I mean, imagine if I was actually getting, quality workouts, quality nutrition, and building my body to be something more than just a hunk of flab that it is today. I mean, you think that these guys will build natural strength as they get older. It's simple science. And so having that power come into play while the guy's still got 38 steel legs. And I mean, you look at it again, This year, he's hitting. He's had an absolute. I mean, you can call this more than just a cup of coffee, like last year's stint in A-ball. 2 games versus 49 this year. I mean, the BABIP is kind of more at a career level, and so his average is not the 429 nonsense it was last year. But I mean, that slash line is impressive. Even the 310 slugging, which is the least impressive of those. That's still a slash line that I'd have every single day. I mean, you look at the fact that he's hit a triple, he's hit doubles. I think that this is it's not negligible power. There's power there because he can leg out those extra base hits. And if it hadn't gone out of the park, okay, that's fine because Bryce can put him out of the park all day. Reese can put him out of the park. Cassidy puts him out of the park. I'm not worried about putting him out of the park. I'd love some more runs to be on the board whenever we do it, though. And guys like Emaarion Boyd with, the disgusting lettuce and guys like Crawford, those are dudes that'll be on base. I mean, let me look real quick at something. So this year, 10% walk rate compared to a 13.8% K rate. And I mean, last year in the complex, he had a completely equal 13.9. So call it a 14% walk and strikeout rate last year. And while the walks are down a little bit this year, that's still palatable considering he has a 14% K rate. So the kid can, again, at this level, I don't want to put too much into it because, it could just be, again, these pitchers are still kind of finding their way. So he can be a little more passive on just junk. But then when guys are actually throwing good, we'll see. But for right now, a 19-year-old at A-ball, this is another player in the Philly system that, is a great representative of more than just your big pitchers at the top.
Yep.
You guys picked good ones to call out. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, Philly's bringing the speed, right? Emaarion Boyd, another speed demon, and faster than Justin Crawford, maybe. Maybe not raw speed, but stolen base speed on the base paths. He projects for 45 stolen bases per 600 plate appearances with STS, which is pretty incredible. I mean, the bat could use some help, but he's got the plate approach, as you were saying. And I got curious. I don't know if you even know about this, Drew, but we got this newer tool about card collecting. It's supposed to help you pinpoint good deals. And I got curious about him because I remember seeing him on here before. And according to our tool, the market price for him is dirt cheap. So that's a guy you might want to look into. That could steal 45 bags per year. I mean, that's pretty insane speed.
So the only thing with Emaarion that I didn't see with Crawford's profile is Emaarion gets caught stealing. He got caught stealing 11 times. Drew, do you have any insight on getting caught stealing versus a ton of bags? Do you think it's a timing issue? Do you think what's your thoughts on that?
I think it could be any number of those things, and this is all kind of just from a gut perspective, not necessarily a studying perspective. Again, as you get major league coaching, you're going to have a little bit more than just your high school coach that says, just go with what you feel, kid. You're going to have more than your college coaches that are saying, well, hey, if the moment's right, go. You're going to have professional coaching with the best in the world. But now I was just looking at speed scores for these guys, and Boyd's speed scores topped out. I think this year his speed score is like a 7.6 or 8 or something. Average out over his 3 stops would be probably about a 6.8 to 7, which is very impressive. I mean, obviously, as indicated by the tons of steals. The difference, though, as you alluded to, is that Justin Crawford's speed scores average at round about an 8.5 to 9. He has got truly elite speed. One of the fastest minor leaguers I would fathom the guess. And I mean, the steals are there, and the speed score also indicates, just how fast he is in both base running and defensive perspective. But either way, I think that it could be something where, if Crawford is in the process of being picked off as many times as Boyd, I think that the speed just, it's pretty simple logic that you would consider the faster guy would get picked off less because he gets there faster. And is Boyd making bad stealing decisions, bad base running decisions, or is it, maybe just recklessness? Could be. It's hard to say. I think that once we get them, again, to Double-A where your catcher is calling more of the game himself and is more responsible for being the field general that he should be at the professional level, we're going to see them against catchers that are well aware of these guys and well aware of their bunny rabbit legs. And, we're going to see some it's kind of where the rubber meets the road, so to say.
Yep.
We'll see if they are Estuary Ruiz or Corbin Carroll and can just have the speed to go with the base running acumen, or if it's something like Tyler O'Neill, whose speed scores are always outstanding, but you don't think of him as a stolen base threat. It takes having that knowledge and the acumen of base running instinct to capitalize.
So that it reminds me of a story. I hope you guys will indulge me just for a moment.
Please.
I saw Billy Hamilton play for the Billings Mustangs twice back when he was at the rookie level coming up. This was probably 2 years before he set that record in the minor leagues of 155 stolen bases. And I came away with like an unimpressed impression, because all I saw 2 games was that they were trying to pick this guy off at first. Every single time they were throwing to first. And then when they finally threw it home, he'd steal and he'd get picked off. And so I was like, okay, what is the deal with this guy? Lo and behold, the next couple of years later, he steals 155 bags, sets this big record. And that is indeed very impressive. But the impression I got from the 2-game sample that I saw was not that, So I don't know.
That's where the new rule comes into play, man. Don't throw it over to first every single time. It's boring
anymore.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess the lesson I'm trying to spell out there is that I just saw Billy Hamilton get picked off twice. I didn't think he was anything special, great base stealer at that time, but he was, at least in the minor leagues. And in the major leagues, not much of a hitter, unfortunately, but yeah. So who knows? We'll have to see it in the major leagues to know for sure.
Absolutely. It's hard to gauge those guys. And, Hamilton was obviously so special. And, that's such a cool story that you saw him at kind of his worst. And, it came away unimpressed. And then, you look at a guy's major league career who, I'll never forget my brother Kyle always wanted Billy Hamilton because, in his exact words, his favorite quote is, "I win steals." You look at your given week, I win steals.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, pretty well. That's pretty true. Is Crawford or Boyd going to be a player like that? I don't know. I mean, you could consider, I guess, Estuary Ruiz is kind of in that boat, but I think Ruiz is a far better hitter than Hamilton ever was.
I agree. Yep. Agree. He's going to.
It's nice to be in a room with Estuary Ruiz believers. Normally, it's just me and Jordan. Man, I like being in a room with Ruiz believers.
The value of that guy is still undefined, in my opinion, because he steals so many more bases than anyone else. That has to be worth a lot, as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's just overlooked. People are like, "Oh, well, now stolen bases are easier to come by," and it's like, still, I mean, he's going to steal 80 bases. And the next closest guy is going to be what, like 50?
40, 50? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't seem that close to me. Still going to win you a category.
Every day.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. So what we're going to do to finish off the pod right now is we're going to jump straight into Termarr Johnson. We had a couple things on the pod kind of listed. I wanted to get into some high risers and some fallers, but I wanted to talk big time on Termarr Johnson, just because he's so interesting. And Drew told me a few things that he's looking into. He's got a future article coming out on, and I want Drew to tell us about Termarr Johnson. I really do, because I think he's an interesting case.
And thank you for the very lovely plug there. With Termarr, I should start at the start, as they say. I think that people would be interested to know that My very first set of officially released prospect ranks was about 700 players in February of this year. And since then, I've released 2 other ranks, and in both of those, Termarr Johnson has slid. Now, initially, if I'm not mistaken, I'll just pull this up because I'm curious where I had Termarr from the jump. But I want to say that I had him within my top within my top 25. As brutal as that sounds now, at the onset of the year, and I was advocating for him being picked so high, even in startup dynasty leagues. And okay. So February I had Termarr at 29. In May he dropped to 39. In June he is at 68. And the article that I'm working on, without kind of burying the lead any further, is on players who have either risen or fallen from February to June and from May to June. And I ask myself why. And so that why is going to be the focus of an article, and it's not exclusively to Termarr Johnson. There are other players, and I guess just for your, scouting the stat line, your listeners, I'll give a little insight. Matt Mervis is another guy that I'm looking at as having fallen. It's pretty obvious to point out why a guy like Kumar Rocker has fallen, even though I think I still may be one of the highest guys on Rocker around. Drew Jones has fallen. And so why these guys that I thought were so safe in FYPD, and, like I've said a million times today, FYPD is something that I'm so passionate about. Why these guys? Is there something that I missed? Is there something that I, might have, saw something that says, hey, there's a risk here of this, and I brushed it over because I was so tuned into that hit tool and batting practice for Termarr, because I saw Andrew Jones's son and got so blinded to the fact that maybe Carl Crawford's son is the guy I need to be looking at instead. I don't know. It's just that kind of thought is so interesting to me. When we spoke off the air about Termarr, you guys had just as much interesting stuff to say, because Ross, and I don't mean to give this away, and I hope it's not like too inside baseball, but you said, I don't really want to refer to Termarr as a faller because he's risen actually in our most recent ranking. And, obviously that's because he's finally kind of looking like what we thought Termarr Johnson would look like. So I'd almost like to turn the question to you guys and say, am I off base? Am I too critical of Termarr?
Okay, so I'll run down the stats here real quick. Termarr Johnson is 5'8", 175 pounds. He's 19 years old. He won't turn 20 until next year. This time, he was drafted round 1, pick 4 last year. His batting average is in 159 at bats. He has a 245 average, a 412 on base percentage, and he slugged 428. He has 8 doubles, 7 home runs. This is all this year. There's nothing about this profile that I am saying that he's dropping. Like, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I perceived this human being as being the next coming of the best second baseman that you can think of. That is how I perceived him. He's not proven me wrong. He's learning his way through the minor leagues. That's what he's doing. Is he dropping through rankings? Okay, that's fine. He's still learning. He's only 19 years old. Like, it's completely fine. He's not striking out at an erratic rate. So he's got high. 60. He's got 63. He's got 63 strikeouts, but he's walking. He walked 42 times. Right. So like he's got a really good eye for the ball. Like he knows where it's going. It's just maybe he needs to swing the bat a little bit more. But he's still the guy that I think he can become. Like, the stats aren't telling me that he's trash. He's still awesome.
I mean, the batting average is low, but that might be balancing out. The strikeout rate is high, 31%. But you're right. He's showing a lot of discipline. He's seeing a lot of pitches. He's got to be seeing a lot of pitches with the walk rates and the strikeout rates that he's got going right now. So I released my second base prospect ranks today, and I got an interesting response from Jesse Roach. And I just want to read it because it's persuasive. So he was comparing Carlos Jorge and Termarr Johnson. I'm going to skip through the Carlos Jorge stuff and just go to Termarr Johnson. But he was pointing out he's got a 90 mile per hour average exit velocity, almost 112 max EV, which these are all great stats. I feel like without context, they don't mean much to me, but they're interesting, good stats. 42% hard hit rate, 7.2% barrel rate, almost 80% zone contact rate. And he was using this as a comparative with Carlos Jorge specifically because he outpaces him that. And I had Carlos Jorge number one in my rankings. So there's something to that. And I think we're starting to see the numbers balance out to it a little bit. But I don't think this is the player that we thought he was going to be when he was first getting drafted. And I have a tendency with some of these guys to probably fade him a little too hard because I put him 6th in my rankings. And Jesse's opinion is that it's Termarr, and then there's a big gap, and then everybody else at second base. So he's really high on him still.
I actually agree with him.
I can't say that, but I do need to reevaluate my position on him because, like I said, sometimes when these guys come out and they disappoint, I tend to fade too hard because I'm like, you know what? I'm not into it. Like I'm not gonna do what everybody else is doing and overrate him just because he came in with expectations.
Right. And I keep struggling with that myself, Ross. And you know, I look and I listen to what Jesse said, and Jesse's so smart. And you know, anything he says is automatically worth consideration, unless it's a trade proposal. I'll say, Jesse, work on that. I'm kidding. But yeah, I mean, looking at these numbers too, I mean, consider that, you know, we expected Termarr to have such a high average. And, you know, right now a 245 is certainly nothing to write home about. The 31% strikeout rate, as you guys alluded to, is definitely not what I wanted. But I mean, I'm looking at a 182 ISO and looking at a 428 slug, and I'm looking at 7 home runs and 8 doubles. And I'm seeing way more power for 19 than I ever expected out of Termarr. I did expect power to be an eventual part of his game, but I certainly didn't expect this for the here and now. So I think that if Termarr Johnson is a little more, let's think.
Get the shoulder off your bat.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's a great way to say it. I think that if he's, you know, I think that if he's flashing a little more power and then he can find a way to balance those two sides of his coin, so to say, that he could have, you know, a little bit of Harvey Dent and a little bit of Two-Face in one kind of fluid deal there. And I think that it's going to be a more well-rounded player that looks like what Jesse thinks he's going to be. Now, of course, I don't like to use complete projection. I like to look at what he's actually doing. It's so much easier to think, you know, boy, if Drew Jones could stay healthy, he'll be the best player in baseball. Yeah, but we're talking about a big if there. If Termarr Johnson continues along the same path he's on, 7 home runs, 8 doubles, a 245 average, and a 31% strikeout rate, he'll probably be a major leaguer, but he probably won't be anything like what we expected. If he can be the skills that we saw previously, plus this, if, again, and it's a big if, then yeah, I think Jesse's right. But in the interim, I feel like I'm left having to reevaluate, like you said, Ross, what the current version of Termarr Johnson is and break kind of the mental stigma I have of this is a contact bat that's failing to make contact. Maybe this is a bat that I misunderstood, or even more realistically, maybe this is a 19-year-old that's still just figuring out the ways of the game.
Well, I mean, those are great points. And is it fair to say that it looks like his hit tool is not as strong as we thought, but his power is greater than we thought?
I would say 100%. And, you know, Brian, I feel like you're kind of the Termarr guy in the call right now. Is that a fair assessment? I feel like us say, you know, obviously you seem, you know, like nothing to be said of anything less than a very reasonable fella, Brian. But is that fair for us to say, you know, hey, you're probably right, Jesse's probably right in some degree, but I want to see a little more of that contact that I wanted before I'm totally back all the way in.
I think that there's a hit tool there that scouts, like actual scouts, noticed a pure swing. This kid's got it. Okay, right? And he gets called up in the minors at shoot, he might have been 17 years old. He was probably 18, but got called up into and at 18 years old. Now he's 19, hitting in single A. I'm okay with seeing this struggle, but I have to trust what the industry tells me with his sweet swing, like good looking, athletic body. He's going to be fine. Obviously, we need to see it in the stats. My one comp right now would probably be Matt McLean with Termarr Johnson. And I think that's the reason I say that is because it's a slow roll. The stats don't line up at all. That's not what I'm saying. Actually, Matt McLean is far outreaching Termarr Johnson.
Yeah, but that wasn't the case just last year. Matt McLean was hitting like Termarr Johnson is this year. So right. I think it's actually a really good comp.
I do too. I think that is actually really apt because even considering where I came in on McLean to how badly he dropped, like McLean's drop was so much more harsh than even Termarr's is. Yep. So maybe to me, I'm hearing I am being too hard on Termarr because I see a realistic, end result with Matt McLean. B, maybe I am learning and gathering by not being as harsh on that decline. And if this is actually a pretty interesting segue, Brian, and boy, we've been really good about that tonight with our serendipitous segues. I don't know if either of you fellas saw this, but Friday night's Reds and Braves game, I was actually in attendance for that. My best friend, nice. Freddie Culver, is getting married. So for his bachelor party, we took him to see his Atlanta Braves in Cincinnati. None of us had ever been to Great American Ballpark. I attended my very first Reds game as the certificate gives away. And boy, did we pick a good one. Ellie De La Cruz hitting for the cycle, the tremendous story. What a success that guy is and a testament to the prospect system. But Matt McLean, I left that game thinking, boy, Matt McLean is so good. And boy, Spencer Steer is so good. And man, I wish Christian Encarnacion Strand was with this club right now. But you're absolutely right. If Termarr Johnson can take the same path as Matt McLean and then he hits Pittsburgh like, a freight train and looks like, boy, but like what were we thinking not having this kid up the whole year? And man, everything we thought this kid from UCLA would be, he has become. I hope that for Termarr Johnson because, man, I loved this kid in the FYPDs. Real quick, I'm going to look at my FYPD rankings from this past year. Yeah, I had Termarr at number 4, only behind Holiday, Jones, and Yoshida. So, yeah, I really hope that for him that he can bring it around town.
That's wild. I really think that Matt McLean comp is fascinating. And, I mean, you don't see that kind of development in a player that often. But you have to kind of marvel at it. And you're right. He's got the pedigree to pull something like that off. Now, here's the other side of that, though. As an analyst, do you rank for that? Or do you put him out where you think is the more realistic outcome that he's probably not going to follow that path? Or do you use your judgment? I think in this case, he's going to follow that path, even though the chances are very low. The probabilities are low.
I think for me personally, it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. I always try to err to a pessimistic side, I guess. So, and maybe not pessimistic as much as just realistic. And again, I've said it a couple times on the show. I try to think about things in terms of what has he shown me. It's so much easier to look at what someone has shown me and proven versus what could be. Tomorrow I could grow, tomorrow I could have a head full of hair. It's possible, but I mean, I think it's much more likely that tonight I shave my head in the shower and I have a nice bald head like I'm used to. I think that, tomorrow I could, wake up with fingernails that are, a foot long. It's more likely that they're kind of where they're at now. and those are all really radical examples because, Termarr Johnson being a talented baseball player is something we all agree on. The level at which is something so much more fascinating, as you said, Ross, because, with Matt McLain's level of pedigree, I think Termarr's is probably at that same level or a little bit greater even because, we expected so much of such a young player, and he didn't have the development from UCLA. He didn't have the bloodline of now, 3 McLains that are, going to be professional baseball players, hopefully as of next year. I don't know. I think that to answer your question, though, I try to look at what could be, but more realistically, what I think they're showing me will be.
Yeah. That well put. I agree. That's the only way you can take it, right?
It's well done, Drew. And I say hogwash on all of it because I say go get Termarr Johnson. I don't care what they say. Go get him.
Go get him. All right. Go get it. Go get it. Do it.
Love it.
But yeah, I did think that was a fair comp, the McLain thing, because he got so slept on for 3 years. It just
Well, I mean, I think it's
it was warranted
to sleep on a guy that's batting .230 for a season.
Yeah, it was warranted. Yeah, it was warranted. So
really a touch of genius on your point, Brian. That's going to have me thinking the rest of the week about Termarr Johnson versus Matt McLain and at the levels of development. And that was a really, really sage-like in the level of wisdom there. Very well said.
Yeah, great comp.
Good. Well, with that, guys, that's what we have with Bats and Stats, and presented by Scout the Statline. I hope everybody loved it. I really enjoyed it. I brutally enjoyed it. Drew, thank you so much for coming on with us. Your insight was tremendous. I got to say that I wasn't a big follower yet. I am going to follow everything that Drew Wheeler's doing. And Drew, I want you to come back, man. I really want you to come back. Let's showcase some more stuff.
I would really like to be back with you guys, and it's such a treat to be here with you. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to speak to your listeners and hopefully just have some things they can chew on. Hopefully we help somebody with some mental stimulation, if not something they can act on right then and there, like yourself. Hopefully they can go find the Justin Crawford, or they can go get him on Termarr Johnson. We'll see what we can do for these folks.
All right.
Thanks
a lot, Drew. Really appreciated it.